Thank you very much for listening to this week's talk on the Sedras of Vayakhel and Pekudei and Parshas hachodesh. So it is a very, very busy Shabbos coming up, and the Thursday after all of these readings on Shabbos, we will be celebrating Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That's why we have this Shabbos is Parshas hachodesh in advance of that, to prepare us for the auspicious month of Nisan. And we have the beautiful opportunity, as Vayakhel and Pekudei are the last two sedras in the book of Shemos. We have the opportunity, as we do when we complete each of the 5 books of the Torah, to say Chazak, Chazak, v'nischazek. And this is something that can really give us confidence and energy. And I think, especially as we look at these sedras of Vayakhel and Pekudei, that sound so similar in many ways to the sedras of Teruma and Tetzaveh. And we see the differences, the nuances that are coming out of these two sedras. I think it can really give us renewed vigor, renewed hope, as we are privileged to complete the cycle of the Sedra Shemos again, of the book of Sefer of Shemos again, the book of Shemos. And I think that this is something that we can really feed off a very positive energy. And I think that if we would use a title for all of these different elements that come together, it would be getting to the heart of holiness in time and in space and in history. And so how does all this come about from the Sedras of Vayakhel and Pekudei? So getting to the heart of holiness in time. This is repeated in the Sedra of Vayakhel, which is the connection of Shabbos to the construction of the Mishkan. And the Sedra of Vayakhel opens with exactly instead of talking about the Mishkan straight away, we have chapter 35, verse 1. Vayakhel Moshe es kol adas b'nei Yisrael, and Moshe assembled all of the congregation of the children of Israel. Vayomer and alehem, and he said to them, Ele hadvorim asher tziva Hashem la'asos osam. These are the things that Hashem has commanded you to do them. Sheshes yomim te'aseh melacha. 6 days work shall be done. Uvayom hashvi yeh lachem kodesh, and on the 7th day it shall be holy to you. Shabbos Shabboson, a day of complete rest. La Hashem, for Hashem. Kol ha'ose vo melacha, whoever does work on it, yumos, shall be put to death. Lo sa'avru eish v'chol moshvesechem, you shall not light fire in all your dwelling places, b'yom haShabbos, on the Shabbos. And then the rest of the Sedra continues with a resume of certain details of the construction of the Mishkan. So we have the centrality of Shabbos, and when we think about the construction of the Mishkan, how that was the holy endeavor of building a house for Hashem, and I think that this is something that is so eternally relevant that sometimes we'll think, I'm doing something for a good purpose, and therefore this I can possibly bend the rules, do it my way. And the discipline of the Torah, the discipline of making sure that in the Sedra, before we have the exact requirements of building Hashem's house, that we have to know that we cannot get carried away with our holy task, that Hashem is saying, before Shabbos, you have to put down all your tools. You're not going to say, this is not for me, this is for Hashem. There's no fudging, there's no excusing, that there is the simple, straightforward rule that I am telling you, Shabbos overrides everything. And the connection that we've mentioned as well, that the 39 categories of forbidden work on Shabbos are derived from the creation, the acts of creation that were carried out in the construction of the Mishkan. So Hashem is telling us that although the Mishkan is going to be a dedicated space to holiness, the concept of holy time of Shabbos is superseding that, and this is something that is going to instill in us the need to listen to Hashem's commands, not to get carried away with our concepts of what is holiness, holy and not. And interesting, the idea of holiness in history. So we have the fact that the Mishkan was actually inaugurated on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So this was in the second year after the Exodus from Egypt, and on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we have to imagine the incredible spectacle, and also miraculously, if you think that the Bnei Israel had been slaves in Egypt, and then they had been in the desert, and they have with them, and they utilize their artistic talents and capabilities as well. But they have this array of materials, the tapestries, the precious stones, the fabric for the garments of the priest, that somehow they manage to actually, in a place that does not have a high street with rows of shops on either side, that they have these materials, and they are able to construct the Mishkan in this way. And I think that as we go into Rosh Chodesh Nisan and connect it both with the construction of the Mishkan and also with that idea of Kiddush HaChodesh, of sanctifying time, as in the first mitzvah that the Bnei Israel got when they left Egypt was to sanctify the new moon, which again, in another dimension, we had Shabbos as the ultimate sanctification of time, or holy time, but equally, and there is sort of the fundamental difference that Shabbos is a fact of creation, and there's a debate in the Gemara. If somebody is on a desert island and they don't know what day it is, do they first keep Shabbos and then count 6 days, or do they count 6 days and then keep Shabbos? So Shabbos exists, as it were, irrespective of us. Shabbos is a fact, but the concept of the new moon, the sanctification of the new moon, this is actually something that originally was done with the sighting of the new moon by witnesses, who then, in a specially described procedure, would then go to the Sanhedrin, and there was a system of bonfires to relay the message in the land of Israel, and the people, the community, the Bnei Israel themselves, were the ones who fixed the new moon. So there is this human involvement in dedicating holy time, which was essential for the observation of all of the festivals, because that was how you knew which day was the first of the month, and then you calculated when the various festivals would be relative to that. And so all of these themes are coming together. And in addition, as we look back over the last 5 Sedras of the Book of Shemos, we have Teruma, Tetzaveh, Kisisa, Vayakhel, Pekudei. And Teruma, Tetzaveh and the beginning of Kisisa are very much focused on the Mishkan, constructing the Mishkan, and the priestly garments and all of the items of furniture that were inside the Mishkan. And then we have, in the middle of Kitisa, we have the terrible event of the golden calf, the Egel Hazahav, and then we have returning to the themes of the Mishkan in Vayakhel and Pekudei. And the Shabbos is in a way also very much of the central focus as a remedy for the erroneous ways of thinking that led to the golden calf. the focus on material for our own purposes, on materialism, on thinking that we can make a God ourselves and we are the ones who are giving the instructions. And Shabbos comes along and tells us, no, this is something that Hashem is overriding. Hashem is the one that is in charge, in control, and we are the ones who have to go according to Hashem's schedule. And so really this whole layout of these 5 sedras is giving us this pattern of the Mishkan on either side, and then Shabbos, which is also on either side of the Egel HaZahav. And it's just teaching us really how we can prevent ourselves falling into a golden calf-like trap. And it is with the support and the mindset of Shabbos, and also the support and the mindset of what was involved in constructing the Mishkan in the time of the Torah, and how we apply that to our lives today. So how do we apply that to our lives today? And I think that the language in both of the sedras of Vayakhel and Pekudei really, really help us. And this is where they are very different in style to Teruma and Tetzaveh. And there is a repetition of language, and whenever we have a word or a phrase that is repeated more than usual, especially within a short space of time, that gives us another element that we need to go deeper into and see the relevance of what is feeling like a repetition. And the first word or phrase that is repeated in the Sedra of Vayakhel is the word teruma, which is used 7 times. And we said that when we had the Sedra of Teruma, this is not the first time that we're hearing about it, but again, because it is repeated so much more frequently in the Sedra of Vayakhel, that is something that is outstanding. We've learned that this comes from Teruma. Ram means uplifted, but it is about the contributions that people are giving. They are really acknowledging that they are, as it were, giving Hashem from what he has given us. And it is giving with an intense humility. And I think that although this word ram means uplifted or high, the right mindset of giving in this situation, and again, if we cast our mind back to the original giving of erstwhile slaves who managed to get these possessions and then dedicate them to Hashem, it is giving with real humility, which actually is ironically a way of lifting oneself up, but because it's come from such real humility. And then the next phrase in the Sedra of Vayakhel that is repeated so frequently is the root nadav, and that is repeated 6 times. And 3 of those 6 times, it's the very unusual phrase of nadiv lev. Now, this is a root that talks about voluntary, and lihitnadev in Ivrit is to volunteer. And it really struck me that, first of all, we've discussed before that the people did not have to be coerced into giving for the Mishkan. And it was ironical, actually, because there was just in one of the weekly papers in a magazine, there was an interview of Bernie Sanders, and he was actually commenting that he's sort of using these percentages that when you have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, when you have the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 92%, and where money buys elections and you're seeing billionaires running for office, what would you call it? So he was saying America is an oligarchy. But with these figures, and obviously everybody has their agenda and they will find the figures that will prove their point. But this has really been a perennial problem, that there will be inequalities in society, and at different times the various revolutions have tried to equal out that imbalance between great wealth that is accumulated in the hands of few and many people who don't have. And whenever there has been an attempt to redress that balance, it has ended up with great destruction for any of the high-minded values that in theory motivated this way of thinking, that we want society to be equal, we want everybody to have equal opportunities, access to healthcare, education, which is really, we have been blessed to grow up in this kind of society to a degree. But I think that when we're listening to what was going on at the giving for the Mishkan, and again, particularly in this Sedra, that this generosity of the heart was so exceptional, to the extent that when we come to chapter 36 in the Sedra of Vayakhel, we have a situation, chapter 36, verse 6, there's verses 6 to 8. Vayetzav Moshe, and Moshe commanded, Vaya'aviru kol b'machaneh, they proclaimed in the camp, Lema saying, Ish v'isha al yasu od melacha. Man and woman should not do any more work, Litrumas hachodesh, towards the donations of the sanctuary. Vayikole ha'om mehavi, and the nation was held back from giving. And just having read, this sort of observation that so many people don't have, and wealth is held and concentrated in the hands of the few. And here we have a situation where the people are so overflowing with generosity that they have to be restrained from giving. And the work was sufficient for them, l'chol hamalacha la'asos oso, for all the work to do it, v'hoseh, and having a surplus. So this incredible nedivot lev, this incredible generosity of the heart, caused such an outpouring of giving that the people had to be restrained from giving more. And this is unique. This is something that appears in this particular Sedra of Vayakhel in a much greater way than in the Sedra of Teruma. And I think that this really shows us the potential that can be harnessed of a community working together, working for Hashem, working to create this beautiful sanctuary, this beautiful Mishkan, a place where it is a dwelling place for Hashem. It's a place where people are going to come, and they're going to come close to Hashem with the korbanot, with the offerings that they will bring. And this really is an ideal situation, and this is something that we can work towards, and we can get inspired as we read these words in the Sedra. And this Rashi comments actually on these words that I just read out. Vayikole, and the nation was held back. This word, loshon mania, an expression of restraint. That was the extent to which the people had to be prevented really from giving any more. So you could argue that this is the taxman's dream. And then, as we notice that Shabbos is strategically placed, we had Shabbos, the mention of Shabbos just before the account of the creation of the Egel HaZahav in the Sedra of Kitisa. And then again, we have Shabbos repeated just before the construction of the Mishkan now. And so I think that looking at the uniqueness of Shabbos, looking again throughout the whole of history, that when the Jewish people come out of the land of Egypt, having been enslaved there, where a day off a week would be so far from their from what they would dare to dream about, that it could have been in Mars, it could have come from a different galaxy. But here we have, Shabbos is telling us at that point, this is part of Hashem's plan. This is what creation is about. And then you fast forward to today, where we're hearing very often about mental health problems because of constant bombardment of technology and social media. And sometimes psychologists, etc., will suggest a 24-hour digital detox. And I just reflect on the wisdom of the Shabbos that is given to us as an eternal gift. Really, we think we have to refrain from many activities, and we have to realize as well that this is for our benefit. This way of relating to our lives, to Hashem, to our communities on a weekly basis is something that has famously been said, more than the Jews have kept Shabbos, Shabbos have kept the Jews. And I think that when we look at the strategic placement of Shabbos at these points over the past 5 Sedras, we really can gain a deeper appreciation of Shabbos and its centrality to our lives. And very often, if one is asking if a certain person is observant, the phrase used is, are they shomer Shabbat? Do they literally guard Shabbat? Are they Shabbos observant? And that is the yardstick. And this has been compared, I believe it was the Chofetz Chaim, who said that just like in the olden days, shopkeepers used to hang a sign outside their shops, and everybody would know that was what the shop was selling, the name of the shop, and you would potentially know what was in the contents of whether were being sold inside. But that was always, when the sign was outside the shop, even if there was an out to lunch sign on the door, the shop was in business. That was an indicator. That was an important yardstick. And so really Shabbos is that sign, and Shabbos is central in so many different ways. And so that's how we can understand when we read Shabbos again in the Sedra of Vayakhel. It's not just another time. It is reinforcing that multi-dimensional aspect of Shabbos that is such an important part of us following Hashem's commands precisely. That yes, we are in this particular situation busy with the building of the Mishkan, but that if Hashem says Shabbos comes first, we put our tools down and we stop work at that point. And I think that these are the messages that we get from all of the various themes of parshas hachodesh, the Sedra of Vayakhel. And then we come to the Sedra of Pekudei. And Pekudei literally reads like a balance sheet. And just in case we might think, especially after the epic stories of Bereshis and the beginning of Shemos, the Exodus from Egypt, and the 10 plagues, and then we come to a balance sheet, and gosh, really, this is not a company account, so why are we reading a balance sheet? But as with everything in the Torah, there is an infinite amount of wisdom and depth, and it was actually just very beautifully described as that Hashem, as he is reading, as he is recording in the Torah, the details of the transactions and the amounts that are involved, that this is like Hashem reading a love letter to the Jewish people, as it were. That Hashem is seeing how much of these precious materials that the Jewish people did not adorn themselves with, but they brought willingly with this overflowing generosity to the construction of Hashem's house. And yes, it is using Hashem's materials. It's like if one gives one's child pocket money and they then buy you a present with that pocket money. but it doesn't actually detract from the fact that this is a gift from the people to Hashem. Yes, with Hashem's materials, but still that doesn't take away from the dedication and from the generosity. And the transparency and the scrupulousness that Moshe Rabbeinu, who is in charge of the public purse, he has to show that everything is accounted for. And this is really a message to all of us in whatever transactions we're doing, whatever work and with whoever we're working. It is so important to keep these records, to be able to show that, especially when you are dealing with public funds, that everything should be accounted for. This is not just a boring list. This is an essential part of life. And I think that all of these wisdoms, all of these life lessons come together and really gives us a concrete and a conceptual idea of what it's like to really find holiness in time, holiness in place, and holiness in history. Thank you very much for listening and wishing everybody Shabbat Shalom.